When did someone use your grief as a weapon? I was working in the hospital when my ex-supervisor Sophia returned after vanishing for 3 months following a patient's death. The entire floor went dead quiet when she walked in. There's the nurse who killed a patient while high on pills. Someone whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. The whole unit turned their backs on her. She was eating lunch alone in the stairwell when I decided to stop and sit down. But just before I could say anything, my manager turned the corner and pulled me up by my scrub top. Stay away from her. She killed Mrs. Brennan while high on fentanyl, but something felt wrong. Sophia's hands shook like mine did from exhaustion, nothing like the jerky movements of withdrawal. I kept sitting with Sophia during breaks, even though it made everyone treat me like I had a disease too. Doctors started ignoring my questions, and nurses whispered about me being an addict sympathizer. During morning rounds, the chief would make comments about enabling dangerous colleagues while glaring at us. My manager wrote me up for poor judgment, but I noticed things about Sophia that didn't add up. She never missed a shift. She caught medication errors others missed. The only rule she broke was slipping money to patients who couldn't afford prescriptions. But then came the night I made a mistake that almost ended my career. I was exhausted from another double and accidentally pulled the wrong medication for a cardiac patient. My hands shook as I realized I'd almost given a lethal dose. But before I could fix it, Doctor Garrett appeared behind me. "That's a serious error," he said, taking the syringe from my hand. I tried to explain, but he pressed closer. "Mistakes like this end careers. But I could forget I saw this if you're grateful." I felt his ashy hand stroke my cheek. "Get your hands off her." Sophia stood in the doorway. Garrett spun around and smiled. The junkie's giving safety lessons now? But Sophia had already hit the code button. "I recorded everything. Security can review the footage of you trying to blackmail her." Garrett's face went white as security arrived. The next morning, Garrett had me in the director's office claiming I'd made a near-fatal medication error, and Sophia had threatened him when he tried to report it. I tried to argue, but my voice came out as a whisper. They suspended me pending investigation and made me surrender my badge, all while Garrett watched with that predatory smile. A week later, the hospital called a mandatory safety meeting that felt more like a public execution. They made us sit in the front row while our photos appeared on screen next to the words, "medication errors." The chief was talking about us being dangerous nurses when Mrs. Brennan's daughter stood up. The whole room went quiet. She pointed at Sophia and said she killed her mother while high on Dr. Eggs. I felt sick. Then she looked at me. "You're just as bad for defending her." That's when everyone lost it. Nurses who'd asked me for help yesterday were suddenly screaming that we were murderers. People said that I deserved to rot in hell. Sophia and I tried to leave, but Mrs. Brennan's daughter convinced them to block the exits. They crowded us and someone spit at my feet. Another nurse grabbed Sophia's badge. We had to push through all of them to get out. My whole body was shaking as we ran for the stairs. A week later, the hospital called a mandatory safety meeting and my stomach turned when I realized they'd made this about us. The chief was talking about dangerous nurses when Mrs. Brennan's daughter stood up. The whole room went quiet. She pointed at Sophia and said she killed her mother while high on drugs. I felt sick because her pain was real, but the story was fake. Then she looked at me. "You're just as bad for defending her." That's when everyone lost it. People I worked with every day started yelling that we were murderers. My friend from orientation called me dangerous, all because I ate lunch with Sophia. When they finally let us leave, everyone blocked the exits. They crowded us and someone spit at my feet. Another nurse grabbed Sophia's badge. We had to push through all of them to get out. My whole body was shaking as we ran for the stairs. We reached Sophia's car in the parking garage and she collapsed against it, sobbing and shaking. I sat down and we just held each other. "You're the only one who sees I'm not a monster," she whispered. Then she showed me everything on her phone. Screenshots of Garrett threatening her for months, computer logs showing he'd used her login while she was in the bathroom sick, security footage proving she'd had food poisoning that night. He called Mrs. Brennan to frame me because I wouldn't sleep with him. She had recordings of him bragging about it, evidence that he'd been planning to do the same to me. I've been collecting proof, but no one would listen until he came after you too. My heart dropped. Full story on channel, link below.